They told her to be a good woman, to marry the man who adored her. But her heart burned for someone who wasn't hers. Now she's carrying his child, and the whole town is ready to crucify her. The rain didn't fall that evening, it wept. Thick droplets danced on the iron rooftops like forgotten lovers returning to a town that no longer remembered their names. The streetlights flickered, some from the storm's tantrum, others simply too tired to keep burning. In the heart of the town, nestled between rusted gates and walls painted by time, stood the old Azuma Residenza, once beautiful colonial relic that now wore age like a robe, defiant and weary. Inside that house, Amara stood by the window, her eyes tracing the raindrops that slid down the glass like tears she refused to shed. She was a woman of quiet fire, dark-skinned like night, brewed in honey, tall with curves that told the story of generations, and eyes so deep a man could drown in them and not wish to be saved. She wasn't supposed to be here tonight, but here she was, wrapped in nothing but a silk robe and a war between her morals and her desires. She waited. He was late, of course. He was always late when he didn't want to come but couldn't stay away. His name was Dapo, half Yoruba prince, half Casanova, with lips that knew the scripture of sin and hands that could either build you or break you. They had met 6 months ago at a medical outreach in Lagos, both pretending to be good people doing God's work. He, a volunteer doctor from Ghana with too many degrees and a crooked wedding ring. She, a community liaison from Nigeria, engaged to a good man who loved her with quiet simplicity. But passion has never respected promises. From the moment their eyes met, something feral had awakened. It was not love. No. Love comes gently, whispers into your heart, and takes root over time. What Amara and Dapo felt was raw, immediate, dangerous, like fire meeting gasoline. It didn't ask for permission. It simply burned. That first touch had been accidental, his hand grazing hers while passing a scalpel in the makeshift clinic. Her breath had caught, his eyes had lingered, the air had cracked open, and from that moment, every interaction between them had been soaked in tension. And it wasn't long before tension became temptation, and temptation evolved into nights. Like this nights where regret dressed itself in silk and waited by windows while the world outside pretended not to know what was happening. A knock echoed against the storm's silence. Amara turned, heart pacing like village drums on market day. She didn't ask who it was. There was only one man foolish enough to come here in the rain. Only one man bold enough to burn with her in a house that should never know fire again. She opened the door slowly, and there he was, soaked to the bone, jacket clinging to his muscled frame, eyes hungry like a lion that hadn't eaten in days. He said nothing. Neither did she. Words had long become unnecessary. He stepped inside, dripping water onto the wooden floor that once held the laughter of her ancestors. She closed the door, and with it, she shut out reason. His lips were on her neck before she could speak. His hands, calloused yet gentle, slid down her back and pulled her into him like he was afraid she would vanish. She didn't resist. She melted because that's what she always did with him. He didn't kiss like a man in love. He kissed like a man at warfast, bruising, desperate, as if he wanted to erase every trace of the fiancé who called her every morning and asked if she slept well. As if her skin was a confession booth and he was both the sinner and the salvation. They moved through the house like wind, possessed by thunder. Clothes disappeared in silence, breaths became the new language, and time folded in on itself. They didn't make love, no, they created it. Right there, on the old floorboards of her grandmother's living room. Under the watchful gaze of ancestral portraits that frowned down in judgment. Every moan was a prayer to the gods of secrecy. Every gasp was a hymn to forbidden pleasure. And when they were done, when the storm had quieted and the air smelt of sweat, sin, and satisfaction, they lay there tangled and breathless, each unsure if they had just found heaven or created hell. Dapo reached for her face and brushed a curl from her forehead. "We can't keep doing this," he whispered, voice heavy with something between guilt and need. Amara didn't reply. She stared at the ceiling, eyes tracing cracks that looked too much like crossroads. She wanted to say she knew. She wanted to say that she hated herself for craving him, but all she said was, "I know." Because that's all you can say when the truth is too ugly to be beautiful and too beautiful to be denied. He sat up, reaching for his shirt. The air between them thickened. The silence was no longer comfortable, it was suffocating. Amara rose too, wrapping the silk tighter around her, as if modesty had any role left to play. She watched him dress. Every button he fastened felt like a door closing. Every movement was a reminder that he had a life outside this madness. Wife, a son, a career. Things Amara couldn't compete with. Things she didn't even want to ruin. She wasn't that kind of woman. Or maybe she was now. Maybe desire had rewritten her morality without asking permission. Dapo stood at the door, hand on the knob, face a canvas of conflict. Next time will be the last, he said. But even he didn't believe it. Amara nodded. Next time, she echoed, though her heart whispered something different. He left without looking back, and the storm picked up again, almost as if to drown the weight of what they'd done. Amara didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the empty side of the bed where no one was supposed to be. She thought of her fiancé be a gentleman, a man of Sunday prayers and weekday plans. He loved her with kindness, proposed to her beneath a baobab tree with a ring he couldn't afford and a smile that promised forever. He was everything her mother prayed for, everything the village girls envied. But he wasn't Dapo. He didn't make her body ache. He didn't make her lose control. And that scared her. The next morning, she wore white, not because she was pure, but because guilt made her want to pretend. She went to work, smiled at her coworkers, laughed too loudly at jokes she didn't hear. She even texted Obi a sweet good morning and reminded him to take his vitamins. But beneath the surface, the blaze still burned. Dapo had left behind more than sweat on her sheets. He had left fingerprints on her soul. Weeks passed and she tried to forget. She buried herself in church meetings, village cleanups, youth outreach programs, anything to drown the fire. But the heart is a stubborn beast. One text from Dapo and she was ash again. He was the match and she was the dry harmattan gristle, ready to burn. They met again, of course, in another town, another hotel, another night of stolen hours and borrowed peace. Each time they swore it would be the last. Each time they lied a little less. And then came the whisper. Whispers travel fast in Africa, faster than wind, faster than reason. One woman saw them enter the same lodge, another saw them leave. A boy from the church recognized Dapo's car outside Amara's office. And soon, the whispers became thunder. People stopped inviting her to prayer groups. Obi's sister stopped returning her calls. Her pastor gave sermons about Jezebels without naming names. But the worst came when Obi asked, quietly one night over dinner, Amara, is there someone else? She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than a scream. He stood, shattered but calm. I thought it was enough. He said, but maybe you need fire? I can't be fire. I'm just a man trying to love you gently. He left her there, broken in a house that had known too many storms. Now, Amara walks through her days like a ghost. She hasn't seen Dapo in 2 months. Maybe he moved on, maybe he went back to being a husband. But his absence doesn't extinguish the fire. It only makes it hungrier. She touches her lips at night, remembering his. She watches the door, praying it never opens, and secretly hoping it does. Because some loves don't heal. Some loves don't end. They just hide in the corners of your soul and wait to be kindled tenderly, dangerously, irrevocably. And Amara knows. Deep in her bones, this fire isn't finished. The town did not sleep anymore. Whispers had grown into words, and words had turned into knives. Everyone had something to say about Amara, now how the good girl had fallen, how the pastor's bride-to-be became the devil's delight. Women in wrappers pointed at her in the market, men shook their heads with hidden smiles, and even children whispered her name like it was a curse. The Azuma house, once proud and full of hope, now felt haunted. Haunted by a love that shouldn't have been, by sins that couldn't be prayed away. Obi had vanished. He returned her engagement ring in a brown envelope, not even handing it to her directly. No note, no closure. Just silence, cold as death. Amara cried for 7 days. Then she stopped crying, not because the pain had left, but because her tears had dried into fire. She stood before her mirror and stared at the curve of her belly. It had started to show small, soft, but undeniable. The seed of a man who belonged to another. A child born not from love, but from wildfire. A child the world would judge before it ever breathed. When she told Dapo he was silent for so long, she thought the call had dropped. Say something, she whispered, her voice already broken. I can't leave my family, he said finally, but I'll send you money. Amara laughed, sharp, bitter, furious. Send your soul instead. I'm already carrying your sin. Days passed like wounded birds, slow and painful. And then came the night of the village health conference. Amara was scheduled to speak. Everyone knew she would be there. She almost didn't go. But pride is a strange thing. It holds your spine when your heart has fallen apart. She dressed in deep red, her bump hidden beneath flowing lace. and stepped onto the stage with a heart full of thunder. She spoke about women, about shame, about the knives they hand us and expect us to swallow with grace. She didn't mention names, but the air shifted. The room pulsed with truth. And when she finished, she didn't wait for applause. She walked out with fire behind her and tears running down her legs like forgotten love. But outside, he waited. Dapo stood by the tree under which they first kissed. His eyes were red, not with guilt, but with hunger. I miss you, he said. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I see you every time I close my eyes. Amara stared at him, half in rage, half in ruin. You left me to carry this alone, she said. You ran when the fire turned into flame. He stepped forward, brushing her swollen belly. I was a coward, but I came back. Let me burn with you now. No more hiding. She didn't speak. She just walked into his arms. The kiss that followed wasn't sweet. It was wet, desperate, dangerous, like two souls crawling back from the grave. He lifted her against the tree, and the night swallowed them. Their bodies moved like prayers turned violent. It was not love. It was need. It was regret. It was goodbye and hello at once. His hands trembled. Her cries were silent. When they were done, he held her tight, forehead against hers. Tears and sweat and shame blending between them. You can't stay, she whispered. But thank you for coming back for once. He nodded. I'll leave. But the child, they'll know I tried. That was the last time she saw him. 9 months later, Amara gave birth to a baby girl with eyes like thunder and skin like honey kissed by fire. She named her Ifananai, which means love in her tongue. The town never forgave her, but she didn't ask them to. She built a clinic for women like her, women who burned and were blamed for the smoke. And every night, when the wind passed through the trees, it whispered, kindle me tenderly, and gently, set me ablaze. Because some fires destroy, but some make you rise.